At dawn, on September 1st, 1939, the skies over Poland roared with German aircraft. Bombs fell, tanks rumbled across the border, and within hours, the world was at war again. But this global conflict, this war that would kill over 70 million people, didn't start overnight. It started with a treaty, a broken economy, and a dangerous man with big ambitions. Let's go back to 1918. World War I had just ended after 4 brutal years. The Allied powers, Britain, France, and the United States, had won. Germany had lost, and badly. The victors met at the Palace of Versailles in 1919 to decide how the world would move forward. Their answer? To punish Germany. The Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany of 13% of its territory, including land given to Poland, France, and the newly created Czechoslovakia. Germany's colonies were taken away. Its military was reduced to just 100,000 soldiers. No tanks, no air force, no submarines. But the worst part. Article 231, the War Guilt Clause. It forced Germany to accept full responsibility for the war. This clause allowed the Allies to demand reparations, huge payments that would cripple Germany's economy for decades. Between 1919 and 1931, Germany paid nearly 20 billion gold marks. Many Germans felt humiliated. They didn't see the treaty as peace. They saw it as vengeance. After the war, Germany became a democracy, the Weimar Republic. But the country was unstable. There were food shortages, street violence between communists and right-wing militias. And in 1923, hyperinflation spiraled out of control. A loaf of bread that once cost a few marks now cost billions. People lost their life savings overnight. The crisis affected every part of life. Fathers couldn't feed their families. Children went to school hungry. People bartered furniture for bread. Trust in the Weimar Republic collapsed. Many believed democracy had failed them. Radical parties on both the left and right gained support. By 1932, political violence was common. Paramilitary groups marched through the streets. Clashes between communists and Nazis led to injuries and even deaths. In some cities, it felt like civil war was about to break out. The Nazi Party became the largest in the Reichstag, and behind their rise was powerful propaganda, posters, rallies, and simple slogans that blamed outsiders for Germany's fall. Things briefly improved in the late 1920s, thanks to American loans and international cooperation. But then came the Great Depression. In 1929, the US stock market crashed. Banks failed, trade collapsed, and once again, Germany suffered deeply. By 1932, 6 million Germans were unemployed, almost 1 in 3 workers. In times of crisis, people look for someone to blame and someone to follow. A veteran of World War I, Hitler, joined a small political group in the 1920s, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the Nazis. He promised to restore Germany's strength, reject the Versailles Treaty, and create a new, powerful empire, the Third Reich. His message was simple but powerful. Germany had been betrayed by communists, by corrupt politicians, and above all, by Jews. In 1933, Hitler was appointed chancellor, and within months, democracy was gone. The Reichstag fire was used as a pretext to ban opposition parties and arrest critics. Hitler gave himself emergency powers, and the Nazis took control of every aspect of German life. Books were burned, Jewish citizens were fired from jobs, and a one-party dictatorship was born. Once in power, Hitler began breaking the Treaty of Versailles openly. In 1935, he rebuilt the German military. He introduced conscription, training hundreds of thousands of new soldiers. Then, in 1936, he sent troops into the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone on the border with France. This was a clear violation of the treaty. But France and Britain, fearing another war, did nothing. Germany's army grew from 100,000 to over 700,000 soldiers in just a few years. Factories began producing tanks, planes, and submarines, all in violation of international agreements. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, was created in secret, then unveiled with pride. The world watched Hitler march and arm his country, but many assumed his goals were limited, perhaps just to reunify German-speaking peoples. But Hitler had already written his true intentions. In his 1925 book Mein Kampf, he outlined his belief in German racial superiority and his desire for Lebensraum, or living space, in Eastern Europe. War wasn't a last resort in his mind. It was the plan all along. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria. This was known as the Anschluss. Austrian leaders were forced to resign, and German troops rolled in, welcomed by cheering crowds. Again, the world did nothing. Then came the Sudetenland, a region in western Czechoslovakia with a large German-speaking population. Hitler demanded it. The Czech government refused. But Britain and France, desperate to avoid conflict, met with Hitler in Munich. The result was the Munich Agreement. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain returned home claiming, "Peace for our time." Instead, it was a green light. 6 months later, Hitler took the rest of Czechoslovakia. By 1939, Hitler had his eyes on Poland. But invading Poland might mean war with the Soviet Union. So Hitler made a shocking move. He signed a non-aggression pact with Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. This was the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, signed on August 23, 1939. Publicly, it pledged peace between Nazi Germany and the USSR. But secretly, the two countries agreed to split Eastern Europe. Germany would take Western Poland, the Soviets would take the East. This stunned the world. Germany and the Soviet Union, enemies in ideology, had made a deal. Now nothing stood in Hitler's way. At 4:45 a.m. on September 1, 1939, German troops invaded Poland. The strategy was blitzkrieg, lightning war, fast-moving tanks, coordinated airstrikes, total chaos. Polish cities were bombed, civilians fled in terror. Within days, Warsaw was under siege. Poland fought back with courage, but their outdated equipment and lack of air support made resistance nearly impossible. Within 5 weeks, Poland surrendered. On September 3rd, Britain and France declared war on Germany, but their response was slow. No immediate military action followed. Meanwhile, on September 17th, Soviet forces invaded Poland from the east. Within weeks, Poland was divided, just as planned. But that wasn't the end of Hitler's ambition. Even as war raged in the east, Germany was preparing for its next targets: Denmark, Norway, the Low Countries, and eventually France. Hitler believed that swift, overwhelming force would shock enemies into surrender. And for a while it worked. The war had only just begun. So why wasn't Hitler stopped earlier? The answer is complicated. After World War I, the Allied nations were traumatized. They didn't want another war. Many leaders believed Hitler would stop once he got what he wanted. They thought his demands were limited. Some even sympathized with Germany, arguing that Versailles had been too harsh. There was also fear of communism, of internal unrest, of economic collapse. But in trying to preserve peace, the world let a tyrant grow stronger. And it wasn't just Europe. In Asia, Japan had already been expanding aggressively. In 1931, it seized Manchuria. In 1937, it invaded China, starting the brutal Second Sino-Japanese War. In Africa, Italy, under Benito Mussolini, invaded Ethiopia in 1935. The League of Nations protested, but took no real action. The global order was crumbling. International organizations were powerless, and aggressive nations saw an opportunity. So what really started World War II? It wasn't one thing. It was a chain of events. A treaty that punished rather than healed, an economy that collapsed, a dictator who promised greatness, a world unwilling to act. It was fear and pride, and the belief that peace could be kept. By giving in, World War II would become the most destructive conflict in human history. It started not with a single shot, but with years of silence, with chances not taken, and warnings not heeded. Because sometimes the greatest danger is believing that doing nothing is the safer choice.